Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. This is Miss Ming. In today's video, I want to share with you my 2-week weight symptoms, how I knew I was pregnant before my big fat positive pregnancy test. So when I was trying to conceive, I googled and YouTubed 1,000 videos, and it's been really helpful because I was very anxious when I was trying to conceive. I personally had a miscarriage before my successful pregnancy. My baby is currently 7.5 months old. So in today's video, I want to share with you my experience in the 2-week weight symptoms that lead to a successful pregnancy. So I personally use Fitbit app for, logging like my symptoms and stuff like that. There are also other apps out there, but I personally use the Fitbit Premium and a Fitbit Charge 5 when I was trying to conceive because it does help with like body temperature logs and stuff like that. I was using a ovulation strip when I was trying to conceive after my first miscarriage. So in my first pregnancy, I was just trying, but I didn't really try that hard. My period was 28 days per month, so it was very regular. But after the miscarriage, I wouldn't know like if my period is still regular. I wouldn't know like when I ovulate. So I personally use a strip, and I highly recommend to use ovulation strip if you're actively trying. And I'll link the one that I use down below. It's from Amazon. It's pretty cheap. Usually around ovulation, you may have some symptoms, and those are not like pregnancy symptoms. They're really like ovulation symptoms because your body will react to the hormones. If you're in tune to your body, you may start to notice like, okay, I may have ovulated or I may be ovulating soon. But to really pinpoint what exactly day that you're ovulating, it's better to use the strip. So I used the strip on that morning. It was really dark. The line was really dark compared to the control line, and when I used the ovulation strip in the very evening, it was like super dark, and the next day it was light again. So I know that I ovulated a night, early morning. First day post ovulation, I felt very sleepy and tired, and this is not because I was pregnant. This is because the ovulation, like the hormones during ovulation, I react to it in a way that it makes me feel very tired. 2-day post ovulation, I didn't feel much. I just felt like a little bit sleepy and tired. And usually when I ovulate, I also have a little bit like a lower back pain around like my right side, and that happens usually around my ovulation, even before or after. 3 days post ovulation, I feel like my breast was a little sore. It usually doesn't happen. I know it happens to a lot of people during ovulation, but it actually doesn't happen to me during ovulation. It usually happens to me right before period. But you usually ovulate on the 14th day in your cycle. It's usually 2 weeks before the period, at least 10 days before the period. So I was like, this cannot be my period coming. So I was very hopeful because I experienced something that I never experienced before 3 days post ovulation. So I was very hopeful. I was like, maybe the hormones are kicking in. Maybe I was pregnant, but it's 3 days post ovulation, so we don't know, right? 4-day post ovulation on that Sunday, I also had a sore breast, and I felt a pinch of my uterus. So it happened when I was running in, like I was walking in our neighborhood with my husband, and my husband was like, I have to pee. And then like he was running towards his mom's house. We live in the same neighborhood. And he was like, I have to borrow the bathroom. And then I was like, okay, wait for me. So I was trying to catch him. I was trying to run towards him. And then I felt a very hard pinch. It's very low towards like my right hip. So it was like kind of like in my belly towards my right hip. It's kind of like where my uterus is. Also, if you don't know, your uterus is not always in the center of your lower belly. Some people's uterus is towards the left side, some people's are smaller, some people's are bigger, some people's on the right side. My uterus was actually towards my right side. It was not in the center at all, and that was confirmed during the ultrasound. So during that time, I thought I pinched my hip. I thought I pulled my hip, but it was really like above my hip where my uterus is. It was confirmed later, but back then I didn't know that's where my uterus is. But I felt a pinch 4 days post ovulation, and I felt sore breast. And that night I just couldn't sleep for some reason. Like, and it usually doesn't happen in my normal cycle. Usually during my normal cycle, I have trouble sleeping 3 days before my period, but my period wouldn't have come for another like 10 days. So in my mind, I was like, no, it can't be my period, but I was feeling crampy. I was feeling like I couldn't sleep that night, and I felt cramps in my uterus for like on and off, on and off. It was kind of weird. I wasn't sure when my uterus was back then, like even though I had a miscarriage, like I was like, maybe I am lucky. So I was telling my husband, I think I'm getting lucky. I think I'm pregnant. And there is no way to know if you're pregnant 4 days post ovulation. Usually it's like after like 10 days, you may get lucky, get a positive test. So 4 days post ovulation, I felt crampy, I felt pinch, I felt sore breast. So 5 days post ovulation, I felt mood swing a little bit in the morning. I still had a sore breast, and I was cleaning the house, and suddenly I had this like enormous feeling of gratitude. I was like, okay, my life is full again. Like I'm so abundant. I have everything I ever wanted. It was just like a crazy feeling that you usually don't get when you're cleaning the house. Like sometimes if I'm meditating, I'm a yoga teacher also, if I'm meditating, sometimes I have this like feeling of gratitude, feeling of love, because you know, I'm like meditating, right? I was cleaning the house, trying to get work done, and suddenly I was like, I have everything I ever wanted. I'm so grateful, I'm so abundant, and I'm pregnant. And that was 5 days post ovulation. So I think that day, on that Monday, 5 days post ovulation, it could be the time when like the little embryo like latched on my uterus. I think before it was probably the cells traveling like through my tubes, like fallopian tubes, all the way to my uterus. Maybe when it's traveling, maybe it was like trying to latch, it's like cramping a little bit. Research says that you're not supposed to feel it, but it's crazy. I felt it right there. So 5 days post ovulation, I felt like energetically I'm pregnant. It's crazy. I'm not talking about it with that day is the first time that I felt like I'm sure I'm pregnant, even though I don't have other symptoms other than a little bit cramps and sore breast. All right, so on Tuesday, so September 6th, it was 6 days post ovulation. I started to have frequency of urination in the evening. So it was 6 days post ovulation. Usually I don't have to go to the bathroom every 40 minutes. Usually I go every 1 hour or so. But then I was like, okay, I really have to go to the bathroom. And I was teaching. So I was teaching a graduate level class on Zoom, and it's a 3-hour class, and usually I go to the bathroom like around 1 hour and a half, but then I was like, guys, I really have to go to the restroom, like give me 2 minutes, everyone take a break, and I had to go. And in my mind, I was like, that's crazy because it hasn't been 1 hour. How much water did I drink? So I started to have a little bit of frequency of urination, and that was when I felt like maybe I'm pregnant, because that's one of the pregnant symptoms that I used to have when I first got pregnant. Okay, so 7 days post ovulation, on that Wednesday, I had a job interview actually. I quit my first full-time job after my first miscarriage. I still had my part-time job, which is a college lecture, but I had a job interview that morning, and when I woke up, I felt my fingers were all swollen. And I remember specifically that was my pregnancy symptom in my first pregnancy. It's just like suddenly my fingers were all swollen. So I felt extremely sleepy and tired that day. It was 7 days post ovulation. So during my interview, I actually did great. I actually got the job. I actually turned down the job because obviously I found out I was pregnant, right? So but I was like crazy swollen fingers, and I felt extremely hot. Granted that I live in Texas, right? September is super hot, but I was so hot to the point that I felt like I was burning hot, and my fingers were swollen. I felt so tired, and I had my first coffee in the morning, and usually I would go for a second coffee because I was so tired. But then that day I was like, I think I'm pregnant. I'm not gonna drink a second cup because you're supposed to limit your caffeine intake in the first trimester. My husband was like, you're crazy. Did you have a positive test? I was like, no. And he was like, then how do you know you're pregnant? I'm like, I have swollen fingers. I knew I was pregnant, and I felt so hot. So usually when you're pregnant, like when the hormones first surge into your body, the progesterones will increase your body temperature, and some people have like sweating, some people have burning dry heat. I had burning dry heat that day, and I was like, watch me, I'm pregnant. My husband was like, don't get your hopes up. After you had a miscarriage, people were like, oh, you're just crazy. You wanted to be pregnant so much that you just trick yourself thinking that you're pregnant. That's like how my husband thought. He was like, don't get yourself hopes up and whatever. I was like, I knew I was pregnant. Okay, so 8 days post ovulation, it was the Thursday, and I woke up feeling so hot, like burning hot. And when my husband was going to work, he gave me a hug, and he was like, girl, your back is so like burning hot. Maybe you are pregnant. And I was like, I'm telling you, like I woke up like with a swollen face, swollen eyes. They were all like bloated. My fingers were all swollen. My legs were all swollen. It was all from the progesterone. My like body temperature was very high, and I tracked my body temperature fluctuations with my Fitbit too. It doesn't give you a specific number, but it tracks the changes. I felt extremely tired. I felt a little bit annoyed. Like I had a mood swings for sure. And I also had some discharge. So when your estrogen or progesterone increase after, you know, the embryo latches your uterus, your hormones start to surge, right? So you have the pregnancy hormones all start going. You may have vaginal discharge, you may have mood swings, right? So on that Thursday, 8 days post ovulation, my pregnancy symptoms were so obvious to the point that even though like I did a pregnancy test, it was negative. There was no line. But I was so sure I was pregnant because it was 8 days post ovulation, and it was like 7 days or like at least 5 days before my next period. There is no way I had all of these PMS symptoms this early before my period, because a lot of the pregnancy symptoms are super similar to PMS, like pre-period symptoms. However, like there's no way it was that early for me. So 8 days post ovulation, I had the majority of my symptoms. I have bloating, hot flashes, swollen fingers and legs and face. I felt tired. I felt annoyed. I felt mood swings. I had discharge. So that day is the day I was like so sure I was pregnant. I was supposed to go to a HIIT workout class that day, but then I was like, if I am truly pregnant, I'm not supposed to take this class because it's too high intensity. So I canceled the class. I was like, I'm not gonna go because I actually like, I want to make sure it's safe for my baby. That Friday, 9 days post ovulation, I had a crazy dream that night. So like on that like Thursday night to Friday early morning, I had a dream of zombies. So I had the similar dream when I was pregnant in my first pregnancy, because when the pregnancy hormones come in, it may changes your REM sleep, it changes your sleep cycle. You may have like some vivid dreams, crazy dreams that I've never had before. I always have dreams, I always remember my dreams, but they're always like related to reality. It's never like something crazy. But I had a crazy dream that there was a zombie apocalypse, and there was zombie everywhere, but among all the zombies chasing me, I just really had to find a bathroom. I had to pee. So the urge of urination woke me up from my sleep in the morning, and I immediately, the first thing I woke up, I got up, went to my pregnancy test, and I went to the bathroom to take a pregnancy test. That's like the first thing I did that morning because of that zombie apocalypse dreams, because vivid dreams is one of the pregnancy symptoms that I had in my first pregnancy. So I was like, and I had the same zombie dream. I remember I was going to the bathroom and there was a zombie entering the bathroom. I wanted to leave, but then at the same time, I really have to go to the bathroom. And that was a similar dream of my second time. It's a different zombie though. This time there are way more zombies. So, and I actually bought a lot of the cheapy Amazon pregnancy tests. Those are the strip, so they're not like the $10 pregnancy test you get from the drugstore. I got the little strip. They were like maybe $20 for 20 or $20 for 15, $20 for 10. So you have to like pee in the cup and put the strip in there, and there was a very, 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 very faint line, like to the point that it's almost like a shadow. I was like, oh my gosh. So I ran to my husband. He was getting ready to go to work, and I was like, look, Tell me there is a line. And he was like, what? Are you crazy? Like, but he was like, yeah, it seems like there is a shadow there that could be a line. So he was being very skeptical. So I was like, no, I'm telling you, it's a lie. My plan was to test myself every single day with the cheapies because, you know, who can afford $10 every day, right? But my plan was the moment I suspect that I'm pregnant, I'm gonna use the good one to confirm. So I used the good one. I'm gonna link that down like right here. This is the best one for the early test because I actually test positive 6 days before my missed period because it was like 9-day post-ovulation. So I used my pregnancy, my first response, and it was there was a line. It was obviously more obvious, more clear compared to the Amazon cheapies because the Amazon cheapies are only valid if you like on the first day of your period versus the first response you can test up to like 6 days before your missed period. That's like 5 days before your period. So the first response was definitely earlier than like the Amazon's cheapies, but the Amazon cheapies still got a little bit like a faint shadow. So the moment I saw it, I was like, everyone, I'm pregnant! Ah! And then the thing is, like, my husband was still being very skeptical because he was like, the line was not very dark. So on that day, I felt tired. I have swollen legs. I felt tired, sleepy, but I felt happy and I was so hot. Like wherever I go, I felt so hot, like burning hot all day. So that Saturday, 10 days post-ovulation, in the morning, I used the Amazon cheapie again. There was a darker line than the first day. It was still kind of faint, but I was like, okay, my hormones are increasing. It's getting dark. The line's getting darker and darker. And my pregnancy symptoms include a frequency of urination. I had to pee every 45 minutes to an hour. I was thirsty a lot. I have swollen legs and fingers, and I have swollen face. I was tired and sleepy, right? And I just felt all of these symptoms and I was like, oh, I'm pregnant. And on the next day, on Sunday, actually, I woke up to go for a walk with my friends on the trail, and I tested myself in the morning with the Amazon cheapie and also with a first response again to confirm it because, you know, I know my lines are getting darker. On that Sunday, it's getting so much darker and I just felt really sleepy, and I shared my line to everyone. I'm not a person who wait until the second trimester to share the news. I told everyone immediately. I remember going for a walk in the morning with my friends, and then I just went back home to the couch and I just passed out on the couch. I usually never took a nap, but that day I took a nap like for good. So I was super sleepy, super tired. I felt a little bit dizzy. I felt really hot, and my legs are all swollen, and all of my pregnancy symptoms kick in. I think around that 11 days post-ovulation is when every single symptom kicked in, and I took a nap and everything. Okay, so 12 days post-ovulation was the day that my period was supposed to kick in, and obviously it did not kick in, right? So obviously, like, 12 days post-ovulation is the day I was like, I knew, I'm pregnant. Of course, the line only goes darker, but I stopped testing myself because like I already tested like myself 3 times and it was like positive, and the lines were getting darker. I was just not trying to drive myself crazy. And also at the same time, I immediately called my OB/GYN, immediately called a doctor to set up my appointment because it's very hard to set up the first appointment. Day of your missed period, you are deemed 4 weeks pregnant. So your pregnancy weeks are coming from like the first day of your last period. So usually your first checkup is at 8-week pregnancy. So the moment you find out you're pregnant, call your doctor, establish an appointment, and even if like anything happens, if there's a miscarriage, you can have care. Like you can call your doctor once you establish that. I think the hormones definitely give me mood swings. Like I definitely had a lot of like ups and downs with my mood during my pregnancy, especially at the beginning when my hormones are surging like crazy. This is my experience. I just want to say everyone is different, and when I was watching a lot of videos about this, a lot of people share that they didn't have a positive pregnancy test until like 12th ovulation versus I test positive 9 days. Some people, they didn't even test positive like until 3 days after they missed period. It really depends on how long your cycle is. When you ovulate, how fast the embryo traveled through your fallopian tubes towards the latching of your uterus, how fast your hormones were surging, if you have twin pregnancy, and there's so many factors that play for this pregnancy. Even though after pregnancy loss, like, of course there's always a little bit stress of like whether if this one is gonna stay, but at the same time, to be honest with you, I just knew this was gonna be a good one. I don't know, for first reason, I feel like because I had this enormous sense of gratitude on the day of like the embryo latched my uterus. I'm pretty sure that's the day of the latch. I felt like it's gonna be a good one. There is a connection already between me and the baby energetically. I don't know if you believe in that. Second of all, also, I looked into the research. I personally have a PhD. It's not in OBGYN field, but since I have a PhD at the university, I have access to a lot of scientific research. So I looked into the research. So the faster the embryo latches your uterus, the earlier the implantation happens, the higher likelihood that this is a successful pregnancy. We don't know why. It could be because like sometimes if there's a DNA error, if there's like any genetic error with the embryos, it may not like implant that early, it may not travel as fast. We don't know why, but they found a correlation between the implantation day versus like they found a correlation between the implantation day to a successful pregnancy. So that's also another thing like I was very positive about because I knew I implanted really early. That's why I tested very positive very early. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be a successful pregnancy. It's different, but there's definitely a correlation that the earlier implantation happens, there's a higher chance that it's a successful pregnancy. All right, that's it, my story. That's it for today's video. I hope this video is helpful to you, whether you're conceiving, whether you're trying to conceive, or you're in the 2-week wait window. Best luck to everyone. Motherhood is a beautiful thing. I hope that happens to everyone who will be a mom. All right, that's it for today. Thumbs up and subscribe and check out my other videos in this channel. There's more to come, and thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.